Hi everyone, welcome to this week's podcast. We're now on episode 3, and I'm joined by Charles Forman from Explmore. And we're talking about overlanding before it was a hashtag, the amazing adventures that his family had been on, and the amazing adventures that he's going to have with the return of the legend, their Series 3 109, which has travelled across the Sahara twice. So let's jump right into this one. It's absolutely fantastic, and I hope you enjoy it. If you are enjoying it, always remember to leave us a review and drop us some feedback or message me on Instagram. It's always great to hear from you guys and see where you're listening from. Hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the Utopia Restoration Podcast. Today I'm joined by Charles Forman, or as you'll know him, Explmore. Hi Charles, how are you doing?
I'm good, Will. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So for the listeners who maybe don't know about Explmore, could you tell them a bit about it and where it all started?
Sure. Explore more. So I started it about 6 years ago. It basically was born out of I'm a designer by day. So after my parents had released their book, my parents, Alec and Jen Forman, they released a book 6 years ago called Strangers Are Like Angels with a Devil or Two to Boot, which basically tells a story of their travels in 1977, where they drove their Land Rovers Series 3 across 40,000 miles through 29 countries in Europe, Africa, and Asia.
Wow.
And after the release of their book, I, obviously wanted to help them promote it. So set up a website for them. And then just over the course of time, felt like, well, for one, strangerslikeangels.com was quite a long domain. And I felt like there needed to be some sort of shorter branding to it. And just from basically mucking about in Adobe Creative Suite, I was like, mucking with words and kind of stumbled upon Explore More and in just designing things, which is great. Realized that the domain wasn't taken, and I was like, well, I'm going to nag that. And it seemed to represent sort of the beginnings of sort of the mantra that I wrote for it, in one succinct word. Obviously, it's kind of recognizable and gets the mind sort of twisted on like what's it trying to say, but just clean and crisp. So from a design standpoint, I was like, that will work. And then I built the website out of that and kind of had it become kind of the parent brand to my parents' book. And then once I kind of established the mantra, which is explore more of the world, engage with others, and embrace global cultures.
Which is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it just kind of personified basically what my parents did in that time. And again, reminder of that, 77, they didn't have any GPS. There was no Google or YouTube or any of the sort of social media we have now to get that inspiration or yearning for travel. It was all just sort of out of their curiosity with the tools and the stories they had themselves. Like they met in the military, which took them traveling around the world for that. But then that sense of not knowing what's around the corner, aside from what you read in magazines, things like that. I felt basically like today, you have the internet and you can be anywhere in the world in some way. Yeah, Explmore kind of was born out of the publication of their story and kind of a unified way of sharing not only their story, but inspiring the next generation to kind of go live a life of adventure.
And I'd say it certainly does that. Every time I see it, I've got it on my keyring, and as I'm wearing now, the listeners won't be able to see, but I've got the merch on. Every time I see it on my keys, I do definitely think I was like, you should probably do that road trip, or you should actually go out and like go off onto that road or drive without the GPS and just sort of see where I end up. So it has definitely concreted that mantra into a form. But their story, Strangers Like Angels, I'm correct in thinking that they sort of went to some places that were possibly sort of less touched by the world at the time, as, like you say, there was no internet. They were quite remote locations.
Yeah, exactly. They were very fortunate in the time that they went, in terms of they crossed the Sahara twice, again with just a compass and map. But today you can't really do that because of all the troubles going there. And then they went to Afghanistan right through the Central Route, which obviously that country changed a couple of years later, and has, been the way it is since then, with various situations happening. So yeah, they got to kind of experience a time in world history that is very different from today, and obviously pre-technology and all that. So they're being able to go to other places in the world that no longer maybe accessible today. Kind of supports the mantra as well, in this need for continuing to explore the world and continuing to engage with other people. And embracing global cultures is very important, because the fact that there are some places we can't go, it's because of, in the end, human beings. And if we're all kind of able to come to the table a little better, we can share this sort of experience that we're having on Earth, and I think celebrate the diversity that we have, and celebrate just even just the difference in landscapes that we have on in the world. And I feel like, every human being should have the opportunity to kind of see all those places. So yeah, Explmore is basically there just to be that reminder, be that encouragement, and my goal is to kind of celebrate the stories of the past and sort of highlight the stories of today, to just keep that momentum going, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a great message to have, that of course we are all the same, and regardless of where you're going, you will meet humans who are the same as us. We are all equal. And just sort of that, when you go and do embrace the cultures and do try to understand them, because then we'll all have a better understanding of each other.
Exactly. I mean, otherwise you're making the mistake of assuming certain things without actually investigating. And if you're able to do some sort of great overland trip, you'll be able to go find out for yourself. But that's even the case for any local trips. You don't know what's down the road. You may never have driven down there, but unless you go yourself and investigate, then you just won't know. So
yeah, you'll never find it. So, and they did all of this in their 109 Series 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, my dad bought it from his uncle, who obviously was, only 2 years old then. But his uncle had used it on a pig farm. So the first couple of days that they were building out the back, they had to clean it all out from all the pig smell. So
A proper workhorse then.
Yeah.
And am I correct in thinking that at the moment they're working to restore it?
So yeah, we are on a journey that kind of started in 2018, when they sort of made a commitment to take it into a restoration. So yeah, the great thing is we've kept the Land Rover in the family since they bought it, so that's over 40
Amazing.
years now. And it obviously did that trip, and then it when they came back to England, they started to have their family, and then it was used on family trips and camping and things like that. And then when we lived abroad in Mali, West Africa, it kind of sat in a barn, and we would visit it every 18 months. I remember distinctly going to the barn, and my dad would, crank it, and usually it would turn on with a big puff of smoke behind it.
As Land Rovers do.
Exactly. But it's always been in our family as sort of like a legendary Land Rover in our family. Like a lot of Land Rovers have stories, but obviously it had a personal connection. And I mentioned living abroad. The reason why I grew up in Mali, West Africa, is because from that trip my parents did, they felt inspired to kind of seek work that took them abroad, outside the UK. So because of that trip, and because the Land Rover took them there on their journey, like I said, they're inspired to take us abroad, and I got to grow up in a culture that was different to mine. So I lived in Mali till I was 13 years old.
Okay.
But yeah, the plan with the the Land Rovers in 2018. They made that commitment, and over the course of the last few years, my dad's been sort of slowly dismantling it. And it currently sits in their garden in Germany, waiting to be transported over here to the UK. And then we're working on plans on how to basically get it to the restoration phase. But yeah, still more to come on that.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I think that's fantastic that because of course the Land Rovers have a lot of history in people's families, like you say. But for almost one to govern your entire childhood is quite impressive.
It's a weird connection there, but yeah, the vehicle allowed them to see the place, explore, and experience those life-changing moments they had, and that obviously in turn inspired them to work continuously in outside the UK and have those opportunities to go explore further. I have memories of we had a Land Rover Discovery in Mali, and I remember going off on bush trips out into the Sahara Desert, or just in the southern part of the country, and we'd stay overnight in the villages, and it's just a unique experience.
Yeah,
and one that I wouldn't trade. So
no, definitely not. It sounds amazing. But so you've mentioned you've had 2 Land Rovers in your life. What about your personal car history?
my personal car history. So when I moved to the US, I got married to an American gal and moved to the US in 2007. And so I was 21. So my first car that I purchased myself was a 1987 VW Jetta. Cool. It was red, 2 doors. I bought it for like $800, and it broke down all the time. It was ridiculous. I will say now, my dad's an aircraft mechanic, so he's very mechanically sound, obviously. And I grew up in the era of as computers were getting interesting and fun to play with. So as a designer, I spent my time working on computers, and I know the basics and things like that. But anyways, the VW broke down all the time. I remember lots of times being on the side of the road, just waiting for the tow truck to come and collect me, basically, because it just either overheated or something. But I had that for a little while, and then I eventually actually sold it for a profit of
that's good then.
$400. So
that's very good.
Or at least not profit, more make the money back that I spent on keeping it up.
I imagine the bills weren't cheap.
Yeah. And then after that, just had various cars that been given from my in-laws or things like that as we were living in the US. My wife went to graduate school, so we moved up to Seattle and lived there for many years. So we had a Toyota Camry, which was fun. It had these like automatic seat belts, so every time you got in and shut the door,
are those the ones that go over the windows?
Yeah. It would throw you off if you weren't remembering it was doing it. But and then we had a 2001 Honda Accord, which was maybe a bit boring, but obviously very reliable. And the only Land Rover I bought in the US was a Discovery 1 97, which was lifted and had nice like beefy tires and things like that.
Very cool.
It was a V8, and from the get-go, it was definitely a money pit. I had lots of fun with it. There's the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia, lots of fun trails to go along there.
That'd be very cool.
But yeah, I even remember, one of my adventures, basically the exhaust fell off of it just as I arrived at the trail, and that was frustrating, but I basically just tied it back on with some rope that I had in the back and did the trail, and then drove back home slightly deaf because it was extremely loud.
I was going to say, I imagine that would have been very loud, a V8 Land Rover Discovery 1 without an exhaust.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have it for super long, because soon after that, our first child was going to be born, and the cost of a money pit and the like enormity of having a child freaked me out. So I basically just parted ways for a while, but it was fun while I had it.
Yeah, that's understandable. You can't always have the weekend toy when you've got responsibilities.
Exactly, yeah. So not to replace that, but we also then around that time got a Subaru Forester, which seemed, very much a safe and family car, but still could go places. Yeah, and then having moved here to the UK, I've got a 2008 Land Rover Freelander 2, which
Nice.
is I love it. It's just the right size, and then I've got tons of plans for doing modifications to it.
So what are the modifications you're going to put on it?
Well, I'm hoping to do some sort of like custom bumper in the back where I can basically remove where the current spare wheel is in the boot and have it sort of sit outside, so I can kind of utilize that back boot space to build up some sort of like day kitchen build out, not necessarily for any like long-term overlanding trips or anything like that, but more of just to take my kids out for a fun day out and have some sort of way of making lunch on that day would be kind of fun.
Definitely. That'd be very cool to do.
So there's that, and then the typical sort of get a roof rack, put the snorkel on it. Long list of to-dos.
Yeah, and explore more mud flaps on the back as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. It currently has an Explmore decal on there, of course. But yeah, lots more plans to kit it out with some branding to get that awareness up.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. To get a custom sun bar as well.
Yeah, could do that.
Yeah, that'd be very nice. I do quite like a Freelander 2, even, sorry. I keep dipping in and out of looking at them, or even just before a Discovery 1, because I've looked at those, they've fallen a bit. But the insurance and sort of price becomes a bit similar to a Range Rover. I know the maintenance costs are going to be wildly different, but when you're buying Land Rover, you sort of glaze over that, don't you? So do you keep looking at modified Freelanders and starting to see that more people are doing cooler things with them now?
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of like about it as well, is it seems there aren't as many pre-made accessories for them as there are for like Discoveries and things like that. So I kind of like the unique factor of trying to do something slightly different. And I prefer the sort of more compact shape to it. I feel like I fit in more places.
Yeah, you can actually get in car parks.
Yeah, exactly. So it is perfect for what I need it for.
Yeah, I think they're very cool. And I think as well, like as a Land Rover, they are sort of quite overlooked, despite actually being quite versatile off-road, being very usable as a daily. And one that I quite like at the moment is the new facelifted Discovery Sports, and with the sort of the W headlights they've now got in them. I think one of those with a front runner roof rack and some beefier tyres would look very cool, and it would sort of change away from what they usually use for on school runs and being dropped off at football.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. I'm very, very excited and keen to get out and do some green laning and things like that as soon as possible.
Have you identified some green lanes near you to do?
I've marked on the map around where I live as many as I can find, but I'm still also getting back into like what is allowed and what's not allowed, as far as like which roads you can go down. So, but yeah, I'm keen to maybe meet with people who know where trails are, so I can just tag along basically.
Yeah, I think Glass is a very good one for that, the Green Lane Association, where they often do local county ones. But I've used the Ordnance Survey app. You can get that, and that can be good. But I think it's a subscription of about £8 a month. Or alternatively, I go onto local council websites, and you can find all the rights of ways and things like that. It's quite manual, but it is a good way to definitively know, can you go down this one or can't you? But sadly, near me, there's been a few where I think people have got a bit bored of off-roaders and have tried to block them off. And you can see that people have either driven over them or they have actually managed to block it off, and then the council have to come and open them up again.
Yeah. It's a balance, I guess. You gotta check what's appropriate, and I don't know, but yeah, I'm keen to, like I said, tag along with someone who does know and do the right thing, I guess.
You're not worried about the paintwork on the Freelander?
I don't want to say no, but yeah, hopefully any mods that I do, I can maybe like add additional protection so that doesn't happen. But it's inevitable. Just not at that stage yet.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, you could always PPF it, couldn't you, if you keep it protected. So I think this is a question that so far we've asked all of our guests that have been on. If you had £100,000 budget for a garage, and this is no limit on the number of cars, just on the value, what would you get and why would you get them?
So yeah, for me, at the moment, it's really whatever the cost is to do the restoration for my parents' Land Rover. I'm basically the one going to be inheriting it out of my siblings, so I'll be keen to see that nicely restored and be able to use it for adventures myself, and then take it to some events. And then of course, all the mods that I was mentioning for my Freelander 2 would be great. But I also feel like there's only a matter of time in which I have to get something electric. I kind of like the Volvo XC40, which I think has either it's a hybrid at the moment or there are plans in the future for electric for Volvo.
I think the electric one's now out, isn't it? With the I think I saw a matte khaki green one on the road the other day. You could tell it had the little green stripe on the number plate, and they've got a blacked out grille now, so it's like where the grille should be, but it's just boxed. But that was sort of similar color to my Land Rover, but it did look quite good.
Yeah, I guess obviously just wait until the technology gets much better and it becomes easier to get. So just waiting for that. So I feel like that's inevitable, but I do like Volvos are on my list as well, I'd say.
Yeah, they're definitely a very solid brand. And also the classic car driving will definitely prepare you for the electric car driving, of having to plan your route, figure out when to stop, giving enough time to charge, or in Land Rover's case, giving enough time to cool down.
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day, about how I've never driven a Tesla, but I would imagine you're basically just planning your route to the next charging point every time, so you can't push it too far. Whereas I feel like, I'm able to just let the diesel in my Freelander just kind of get me a little bit further before I have to go find a petrol station. But
yeah, I don't know if the AA offer roadside recharges yet, so it's probably a recovery job, isn't it, if you run out?
Yeah.
You never know, we may see that coming in the next year. See a green AA van come and plug in. So Explmore has, of course, the main page, and then you've also got the Strangers Like Angels. Now you've got the Return of the Legend page.
Yeah. So my focuses for Explmore is spreading the Explmore mantra, which Explmore, obviously, it's inspired by my parents' story. So I also try to promote their book as much as possible as sort of the basis for the brand. And then, continuing that restoration plan is that Return of a Legend webpage as well, which everything is on the Explmore website, including our publication, in which I at the moment share the stories of today's explorers. I do sort of an interview series with explorers from today and help spread their stories. And I also have some pieces that I've written doing some reflection on basically my parents' travels and how it compares to today, and things about like technology and some of the stuff we talked about earlier.
And they're fantastic reads as well on the blog post that you're doing on the website. So people should definitely go and check those out. So what's your future plans with the Return of the Legend? I've seen that there's been some things teased about secrets to be kept with your fridge magnets that have been given out Are you able to elaborate anything further on that yet, or is it all under wraps?
Yeah, there's elements to the restoration that are under wraps, as we're kind of figuring out more details on how to accomplish it. But as far as after restoration, like I mentioned, it would be great to have the opportunity to take basically the vehicle to events and showcase it, and basically continue kind of amplifying as I'm doing my parents' story, explore more, and sort of I kind of imagine at events having, people and kids kind of sit in the back of the Land Rover and listen to the podcast that we've got of readings from the book, because I did a whole project over 2 years, basically having my parents read their book, and we made an audiobook. So there is
Fantastic.
actually a podcast you can read. You can listen to all of the book on the podcast. But so yeah, plan is to basically get it restored and then take it to events so that people can see it. And if I do take it on any far adventures, it's probably taking it to places that it hasn't been. It's been all in the countries that were on their trip, but it's not been up to sort of it's not seen the Northern Lights or things like that. So maybe there's opportunity to do that.
That would be a very cool trip. I think we went to Finland 4 or 5 years ago, and definitely say it's a fantastic place. And if you could do some overlanding in it, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, with the restoration, it's going to be a balance of sort of keeping it true to its original self, but also I think I'm excited about some of the elements of like bringing it a bit more into the 21st century, maybe on the electrical side and things like that. So yeah, more to come on
solar panels.
Yeah, I think a nice healthy balance of respecting the originality of it, but then also, like I said, bringing a bit more 21st century to it, just to make it a little bit more convenient and comfortable for myself and any of my family's adventures with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, well, as your parents were doing it before overlanding became a hashtag, I think there must be some very different sort of technologies of how they've built it compared to now, where there's millions of different products that you can get to build your overland.
Yeah, exactly. That's an interesting reflection. Obviously, yeah, the technology side is that they only had what they had and they didn't know any different. So today you can whip out your phone and have GPS to take you wherever you want. Yep. And air conditioning as well. I think that's something even different. I just just imagine driving across the Sahara Desert, and at one point they had to do it because they had to change their route, which meant they went through it for a second time during the sort of peak of the heat season. So, yeah, just different.
Yeah, that must have been phenomenal.
But they will always say that like it's just what we did, So.
Yeah, I mean, I was driving mine this summer, and it was been about 35, and roof off, door tops off, sort of as much airflow as you can get, and easily in the cabin. Still, with all that, it was sort of 40 odd degrees with the engine heat. It was sweltering, and that's just on UK roads, let alone literally being in the Sahara.
Yeah, exactly.
Aircon would be a good luxury to add. So, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, or anything that you'd like to promote to the listeners?
So I definitely would encourage everyone to go check out my website, explmore.com. That's explmore.com. And there you'll find all the information we talked about, centered around the mantra. And then there's that inspiration from past and present on our publication page, as well as obviously we've got a shop with some products that just help remind you to explore more, including just came out with the Explorer hoodie, which I think you've got, Will.
Yeah, it's very comfortable. I can back that.
So, and with that, actually, I was going to set up a promo code for your listeners. So for £10 off, if you use Utopia on checkout, you'll get Perfect. £10 off the hoodie.
And this will all be in the description as well, and in our bio, so you can go through and check any links there.
Yeah, just as far as future plans, it's just as we're coming out of lockdown and all this pandemic stuff, just trying to take as many opportunities to kind of spread the message of Explmore and get more awareness of the brand as I sort of continue with these various projects. So
yeah, 100%. And I'm correct in thinking that if you go to Return of a Legend, you can sign up to your newsletter and you get a free fridge magnet.
That's true. Yeah, returnofthelegend.com. You can get a free magnet,
which I have on my fridge, and it is a fridge magnet of the legend, the 109 Overland, and it is very cool. So I definitely recommend people going to have a look at that. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Charles, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Cheers.